Okay. Hello, testing community. My name is Sebastian Małyska. I'm the chairman of the marketing working group in the ISTQB, and I'm very lucky person. Why lucky? Because I have privilege to explain you why we are meeting in this lovely day. But at very beginning, I would like to thank to all of you who joined our morning session. It's a first live of the ISTQB. That's why it's a big privilege to hosting you. Some general information. So we are really hoping about your feedback. We're really hoping about your questions. So please use the comments under the streams to ask the question, to raise your concerns during the talk. All the questions, or at least majority of them, we'll try to explain on the end of the session in the Q&A question and answer section. Okay, why we are meeting now? So, guys, today it's a very special day. Today it's we as ISTQB releasing the latest version of our most successful certificate to the market, to the EU, and it was a very long journey, and there's a lot of people working on this, and today we are hosting the one of two leaders of those team that will talk about what was changing, what was the idea behind of those change, and explain you everything that you always wanted to know. So say hello to Michael Pilaten, which was the lead of this project. And Michael, the stage is yours. Tell us why we need to change those CTFL.
Thank you, Seba. So, welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Well, just like Seba, it's hard to explain how excited I am to be standing, or better sitting here, in front of you presenting the new ISKB Foundation syllabus. Over the last years, we read quite some comments and remarks regarding ISKB and more especially its foundation level syllabus. Comments were that it was outdated, it was not up to speed with everything which was agility, it was too theoretic, it was designed for testing as a profession and was testing for activity, and much more. I'm only saying the good stuff, by the way. So all of that comment triggered us to make a bold move, because up until now, all the versions of the ISKB Foundation syllabus were aspects of evolution, of keeping the core stable, the core beliefs, the core principles, the methodology stable, and adjusting the small things on the side to the reality of nowadays markets, which is normal. We are talking about the largest, single-handedly most successful certification and qualification scheme regarding quality and testing. We have more than 1 million people certified. So that means that every change that we imply on the syllabus will impact testers worldwide. But not only the testers, also the training providers, the HR departments, the IT departments, exam providers, and many more stakeholders. Now, the world has changed, and ISKB is also aware of that. Over the last years, we have seen a huge landscape slide in terms of way projects and processes are handled. If you take a look at the Worldwide Software Testing Practices report, people reported that 79% performed their development activities in some form of agile fashion, whether it's Scrum, Kanban, XP, Lean, whatever you can dream, they call it agile. 43% present that, or is claiming that they work in a sequential way, V model, Waterfall, or anything which is the more classical approach. 27 say they do something hybrid or blended, a combination of sequential and agile, and 11% claims to do something in an iterative fashion. Now, I know my audience is testing or quality oriented, so it's immediately clear that the sum of this all is more than 100%. Which is okay because people had multiple options. Not a mistake on the slides, it's true like that. But if you take these numbers, it's quite clear that we have moved away from only V model and Waterfall, which was the basics and the foundation of our foundation syllabus for many, many years. And the syllabus has underwent a huge history. It is based on ISAP and ASQF, amongst others, and its first version was all released in 2005. The last, most recent version up until now was released in 2018. That's 5 years from now. So we had to make a bold move. We had to change things drastically. And what we had in ISQB is we had the foundation syllabus, but we also have on the left-hand side of our portfolio the Agile stream, where we have the Agile tester. So we had the idea, well, let's bring things together. Let's blend in the agility from that syllabus in foundation, because also that syllabus needs updating. So we sat together with a bunch of people talking about strategy, about process, about methodology, about keywords, about concepts. And we said, okay, but we cannot make this call just based on gut feeling. We cannot base ourselves on subjectiveness or on our own opinions. We need some data. So the first thing we did is do a market research. We took a look at job postings. What skills and tool sets are organizations and companies looking for when they want to recruit a tester or a quality engineer or whatever you want to call testers nowadays? And what was the outcome there? That people were looking for a critical mindset, that they were looking for people who could think analytically, that they were looking for people who could collaborate, work in teams. But on the other hand, that might seem a bit strange also for people with a large degree of independence, who are not easily blown away, that take pride in delivering quality products, that are true team players, and on top of that, that are certified in some way. So that's the way LinkedIn companies see testers nowadays. This is what they're asking for. They're not truly asking for tool sets, because that's something which is outdated in a couple of years. But these are the skills, you can call them soft skills, I call them skills in general, that companies are looking for when thinking about testers. So that's the first thing for me and for us as a team that was important to keep in the back of our minds when drafting a new syllabus. Secondly, we started to define a strategy for the new syllabus. We wanted to create a new standard that brought the two worlds together, the classical, traditional, sequential world of the V model and Waterfall, with its documentation, its requirements, its elaborate test planning, well-documented analysis and execution. And on the other hand, a more incremental or iterative world based upon open communication, collaboration, and continuous everything. Which was honestly quite hard, because we had syllabi for both worlds. We had the old foundation and the Agile tester. And just merging those two would definitely result in a Frankenstein version of a syllabus, with topics all over the plate and a total consolidated study time of 5 days or more. So we decided it was too long, it was impossible, that we would merge, if possible, the duplicate items from both syllabi, keep as many of these topics in both syllabi as SDLC agnostic, not talking about V model, Waterfall, Agile, but what is common, and keep those as is. And of course, introduce as many industry accepted practices as possible, whilst keeping a pace of 3-day training or study time effort. That was our second decision. And finally, we did a stakeholder elicitation. And if there's one lesson that we as a team and I as a person have learned, is that there's worldwide no definition of a tester. Of course, we are ISQB, we wrote a definition of what testing is, but a tester is undefinable. Testing is an art, like painting. You can't compare or contrast Picasso and Da Vinci. They have completely different styles, but we can still call them painters. So we had talks with all kinds of stakeholders that, for example, told us that Agile, that's already beyond commodity, so we should not include it in the syllabus, whilst other stakeholders were reluctant to introduce anything regarding collaboration, because that's something we will never do in our world. So the syllabus is aligned with all of that. It is a new standard. It's the new qualification document for the art of software testing. For every testing activity, for all people that perform any kind of testing, whether they are developers or analysts, product owners or business proxies, whether they are tribe engineer or quality engineer or dedicated tester. Wherever you are in the world, for whatever kind of organization you work, the syllabus is there for everywhere, everyone. Now, I cannot present the new syllabus without thanking quite some people. To achieve this, we had composed a team of different authors with different backgrounds from different countries, from trainers to consultants, from professors to managers. All roles, but also all global regions were represented to make this a global syllabus. And not only that, because we also had to ensure that our syllabus was technically sound, we relied on a group of technical editors and, of course, a group of worldwide volunteers that expressed their opinion in 4 rounds of reviews, challenging us completely, our business outcomes, our learning objectives, our syllabus, the exam question, the answer, the justification. We got quite some comments, but we tackled those and we went into discussion to make sure we wrote the best syllabus on the market. So I guess if you saw me on conference the last couple of weeks and months, I've said it already a couple of times before, but I'll keep on repeating this since this group of volunteers really pulled it off. So I can not express anything else than just my gratitude to all these volunteers that made this product possible. Now, what is this product about? What is the new syllabus about? Let me share some insights regarding the topics we'll tackle in the syllabus and the contrast with the old version. The first chapter is still called the fundamentals of testing because we have to explain to people novice to testing what testing is about. So we'll explain what testing is, what is testing, and of course, what is not testing. We also explain, and unfortunately, that's still something that people need to do a lot, why testing is necessary. Yeah, but we have all kinds of great tool sets, and we have the best developers in the world, and we have this IDE, and we do not need testing. Well, sorry to say, but you will need testing, and you will have to do some investments in quality. So you need testing. We'll explain why. That helps you to make a business case to your managers, to your product owner, to invest some effort in testing. We'll talk about the basic test principles. What are the guiding principles when undertaking testing? We'll talk about an overview of different test activities, the testware, so the products we are creating while testing, and the different test roles, the roles people undertake in a testing project. And finally, we talk about the essential skills and the good practices that you can apply in testing. Now you might say, well, Michael, that's not too different from the current version that we have. What are the differences? Well, first of all, if you compare version 4 of the syllabus with version 3, the current version, we have other objectives. We went way beyond the existing objectives, and we introduced new objectives why testing is needed. We have completely switched testing from a full-time job to an activity or even a role people can undertake. Testing is now a conglomerate of items, of activities anybody in a team, a development team, a tribe, a squad, a guild can do, which is a drastic change. We also changed the skill set. We went for a more holistic approach in terms of skills, with more attention to the personal skills and less to the technical skills. And finally, we decided that quality cannot be obtained by having one person responsible for quality. Quality is a whole team approach. And then we're not only talking about the quality of the software, but also the quality of the process, the quality of the deadlines, the quality of the documentation, the quality of the communication and collaboration. All of that is a whole team approach where we must make everybody responsible for that level of quality. The second chapter, and I think this is the chapter that changed the most, of course, is testing throughout the software development lifecycle, or SDLC. What are the topics there? We'll explain how you should test depending on the context of your software development lifecycle. So how do you have to test when you work in a waterfall, a V model, a W model, an Agile model, an incremental, an XP, a Scrum, a Kanban model. What changes, what remains stable? Or any hybrid model, Waterfall, Water Scrum, Agile, whatever you can think of, hybrid blended models. We'll explain in the syllabus how you should tackle that, but also what remains independent. We'll explain the different test levels and test types and the linkage between them. And we'll talk about maintenance testing. Testing when your software is already released, it's in production, it's live there. What kind of testing activities should you undertake? What has changed? Well, of course, I said a lot. We explained the impact on the different software development life cycles on testing, because of course, testing changes or can change drastically depending on the SDLC that you have. If you have a release window of 6 months, that has a different impact on testing than when you have a release window of 1 week or 2 weeks. We introduce, and that's new for ISKB, the test first approach. Coming from Agile, coming from DevOps, to start testing as soon as possible. I expressed already, so we also introduced DevOps, not from a tooling perspective, we explain also something about tools, but rather from a collaboration and communication perspective, to bring developers and people from ops and anybody in between closer together, to avoid defects, to avoid miscommunication instead of detecting those. So we go from avoiding conflicts, avoiding defects, avoiding failures, to detecting. That's the shift we made. We also talk about the shift left approach. Again, it's in the same strategy. Instead of focusing on reviewing things, on testing things, on verifying and validating things, we are talking about collaboration, about writing requirements together, writing user stories together, writing acceptance criteria together, doing estimations together, so that make sure you avoid defects. And we also introduced the concept of lessons learned and retrospectives, with some techniques to make these valuable and to make some added value, to get some added value out of these retrospectives. Chapter 3, that remained quite stable, which is what we call static testing. There we talk about the basic techniques of static testing. And we introduced the feedback and the review process for any kind of documentation or anything which is written, so including code, software code. What is new there? Instead of considering static testing as a one-off, a one-time process, we now have built in our syllabus a frequent feedback mechanism. That it's better to work in small iteration instead of waiting until a whole chunk of code is ready or until a document is stable. Continuous and frequent feedback. And finally, just like in the previous chapter, the attention goes to avoiding defects, avoiding bad work instead of detecting those. Because we all know Barry Bum's work of software economics. The earlier you detect a defect, the cheaper it is to find and to resolve it. This is the basic of this chapter, and I think also the guiding principle of a lot of topics in the syllabus. We want to shift left more, create quality more, ensure quality earlier. Chapter 4, this was called test design or test analysis or test techniques. Now we shifted to test analysis and design, so not really about only the techniques anymore. We keep on talking about the techniques, so we give you an overview of all test techniques that are tackled in the syllabus. So a lot of these things are on a K3 level to practice, to make exercises. We talk about the black box techniques. Black box techniques, as I'm sure you all know, where you work only on requirements, on the things you have on paper, and you don't take a look at the internals of the software that is under test. We talk about the different white box techniques, where you don't look at the requirements, or at least as possible, but you're going to build your test cases upon the internal structure of your program. We talk about the experience-based techniques. Those were already there for quite some years. Those were the more agile-ish techniques that we had in there. So error guessing, exploratory testing, all of that has remained. But new there is what we call the collaboration-based test approaches to achieve that level of quality sooner, earlier, to have that in there. So what is new? We have shifted away from what we called in earlier versions decision testing on the white box techniques landscape, and we shifted to branch testing. In practice, it's a lot different that much, but of course, there will be some slight changes. Most tools have already underwent that change. They use branch testing. And the syllabus will make clear why we made that change, why we wanted to make that shift, because theoretically, academically, this is the most accepted concept there. We also introduced checklist-based testing as an experience-based technique, not only error guessing and exploratory testing, but also based on checklists. And those checklists can be based on heuristics or on testing tours or on common knowledge that is used, or on test charters. At least it has the basic concept there. For the collaboration-based test approaches, we also talk about writing user stories. Yes, we want testers to be able to assist in writing user story, to practice collaborative user story writing, to ensure that those requirements, those user stories, or even the visions or the epics or the features are well written, are complete, are consistent, are correct. We want to avoid that these omissions are detected only in testing or in development. We want to detect them earlier. So we want testers to be able to write user stories. We also want testers to be able to derive from those user stories testable acceptance criteria. So just like a definition of ready, a definition of done on a user story level, on a requirement level, what makes a requirement good enough to be accepted, to pass the guidelines of quality? And then finally, we also introduced the concept of acceptance test-driven development. Gherkin, amongst others, will be introduced, the given when then statements, not from a tooling perspective, but again in an avoiding. ATDD not as a testing approach, but as a development approach. How can we limit the requirements that we need to write? Also limit the number of translations from requirements to test cases, to code, to execution. No, we can avoid a lot of those translations, which are, of course, causing errors. We want to avoid that, and we want to try to do that using ATDD. That's for chapter 4. Chapter 5 was called previously test management. Now it has been rebranded into managing the test activities, because the more you go in agile approaches, the less you see the need for a pure role of a test manager. And the management is rather something that is a group of activities undertaken by a squad, by a tribe, by a guild, by a group of individuals responsible for quality of the software. So hence the topic change. What are internal topics? We keep on talking about test planning, of course, because that's something we need to do, whether it's on a big scale of a large project of multiple months or multiple years, or it's on a small scale with a 1 day, a 5 days iteration, you still need to do some test planning. We also talk about risk management. Whatever kind of SDLC you work in, risk will define your testing. Depending on your context, your risk level will different. And then you talk about likelihood, and you talk about risks, and you talk about risk priority numbers and all kinds of things. That remains stable. That's still there whether you work in Agile or not. We'll talk about the process of monitoring your testing, about taking controlling measures if your monitoring veers off, and of course about test completion. When is testing enough? Then we relate it to Agile with the definition of done. We created to exit criteria or acceptance criteria. We talk about when testing is sufficient, because we all know that if you give testers just a free hand, they keep on testing until eternity. We also talk about configuration management, which has now become more agnostic. Configuration management in previous version was rather oriented towards documentation. Now we also say can be applied, should be applied to code, to our own test automation case, to our own test cases. And then finally, no surprise there, we also talk about defect management. What is new in this chapter? The concept of testers collaborating, deciding, making a release planning. So for a full release, what are the user stories? What are the requirements we want to have in the next major release? On a smaller scale, we also talk about iteration planning, or for those who work in Scrum, sprint planning, because there it's essential that the tester is there. For those who like the SAFe framework, we also introduced the concept of PI planning or big room planning, so even on a larger scale. So a lot about making sure the right elements are addressed at the right time, that it has a good cadence, a good speed of development and testing. We talk about different estimation techniques. You might say, well, Michael, that was already there in the syllabus for quite some time. Yes, that's true, but we introduced quite some new ones there. So I think there's some large changes for you there, some great content for you to take a look at regarding estimation techniques. We introduced the concept of the testing pyramid, not only from an agile point of view, the different levels of testing that you can have, but also from an automation point of view. And then finally, we reiterated over the different testing quadrants, depending which side you are facing, what kind of activities you can undertake to get the most complete and holistic view of testing you can have in your project that you're currently undertaking. And then the final chapter is still called the tools that you use for testing, or testing tools. There we talk about the different tools that can give support for your testing. And we also highlight the benefits and the risk of applying, or the risks of applying, test automation. What is new there? In the tools that support your testing, we introduce the category of DevOps tools. If we highlight DevOps as a new approach, as an approach which is now has become an industry standard, of course, we should introduce the necessary tool sets for that, but also the tools that can assist in collaboration. Collaboration is one of the key messages in the syllabus, so we also introduced that classification there. That is, in a nutshell, the content of the new syllabus. Of course, there are many other topics there. I cannot list this exhaustively. I've learned that over the last couple of hours, since 4 hours and a half, the new syllabus is live on our website, isqb.org, where you can download it, including sample exams and everything you can think of. On that limited amount of time, without giving any commercial, it has now been downloaded over 500 times already, individual downloads, unique downloads, so that's great. So take a look yourself and let us know what you think about the new syllabus. In the meantime, in the introduction of this webinar, I already got some feedback, some questions and remarks, and I know you might already have some also waiting for me in the chat after this talk is over, and I'll respond to them, but I want to share some ideas already with you that we received. So the first question that we had is that the existing CTFL 3 syllabus that had a study length of 3 days, where you do it in a training of 3 days or in your own private time, study time 3 days. People wanted to know what the length of the new foundation syllabus is, CTFL 4. We decided, and that was again, as I explained, one of the strategy items, that it should have remained 3 days of study length. So whether you follow a training for CTFL 4 or you do it in your private time, the time you should calculate to do the study is 3 days. That has remained unchanged. Then a question about localization. When will the syllabus and the exam be available in insert whatever language you can think of? French, Finnish, Greek, Spanish, Portuguese, insert that language. Well, it's the member boards, your local representative member boards, which are responsible for translating the syllabus, translating the mock exam, translating the glossary items, so the language, the words which are used. On the other hand, the exam providers, that can be a company, that can be your member board, is responsible for localizing the exams. According to ISQB rules, it can take up to 18 months. And after that, you cannot find any of the old materials anymore. But we are already informed that the majority of the member boards have started the translation work already. And that made great progress. So I believe that in a couple of weeks or months, your first syllabus and exams will be ready in your own language if needed. Of course, English is already there, so you can read what you want, but if you want to do it in your local language, that will be available shortly. Another question we had was a very direct one. Is the new CTFL4 a merger of the old CTFL and the CTFL Agile tester? There, the answer is no. In the history of ISQB, this is the first full rewrite of a syllabus. We started from scratch. It was a blank canvas. Of course, we let ourselves be marinated in the history of both syllabi, and we used certain concepts of the syllabi, but we extended those with new learning objectives. We revamped some existing learning objectives. We removed some of the existing learning objectives, and we rewrote the whole thing. So I don't think there's one sentence in the new syllabus that you can find if you do a Control F in the existing CTFL or the old CTFL better or the Agile tester. So that makes it completely brand new. That, of course, also means that if you are a training provider, or if you make your own training materials to train your own staff in ISQB, that you will have your work cut out to make sure it's aligned with the new syllabus and the glossary items. And the last question I got via social media prior to this webinar was if there's any value in recertification. I assume there that the person is talking about people who have already a foundation level certificate from ISQB. Is there any need to recertify? And there we have a more or less duplicate answer. There's yes and there's no. The no answer is quite clear. ISQB has always stated that certificates have a lifelong validity. So there's no need in terms of I have a certificate and now we have a new version, so I have to recertify. No, that's not the case. The yes is there are so many new concepts. It's a drastic change. It's a fully rewritten syllabus that it might be a very good idea to refresh your knowledge. Does that mean that you have to certify or take a training? No. You can read the syllabus. You can do the mock exams. If you want to have the certificate in a new version, shall I say it's a bad idea? No, I can only encourage you to take a new certificate because it will be the proof that you have absorbed the new knowledge. But it's not mandatory, and nor your employer nor anybody can ask you to do it again if you already have an ISQB certificate. Even in the SCR, we will not display whether it's old or new. That's it from my side. So now I'm ready to listen to you, whether you have any other questions for me that you want to have highlighted. Okay, I see a question there. Where can we download the English new syllabus, please? That is on isqb.org. That's our website. There you can find all this, the syllabus, the materials, the learning objectives, the mock exams with the right questions. You find the glossary items there. All of these items are there ready for download. Our marketing team worked very hard to have the website up to date. So you find all the old materials there. We have shifted the new materials you find there. We have shifted the old materials so that you also have these there as reference for those companies who still want to be aligned to the 3.1 version. Any book or study material for the newly updated syllabus? That's a good question. Well, first of all, the syllabus is the foundation. So it's the basic on which any kind of work product will be built on. Together with the syllabus, we released a number of mock exams, one mock exams with different questions. We're working on already different versions of mock exams, that we have more mock exams available. And I can only imagine, and I can predict, in fact, that a lot of training providers will be ready or trying to get ready to translate the new syllabus into training materials, e-learnings, whatever you can think of. I know that one of the authors or a few of the authors of the syllabus are working on a book to be released that normally should be by summer there. So yes, there will be books and study materials, because according to ISQB guidelines, and also in line with other kind of certification schemes like SAFE, like IREP, like IQBBA, like ITAL, the syllabus alone gives you the necessary knowledge to pass the certificate, to learn something, but it's not the only thing that you can have. So it might be a good idea also to take those supplementary additional learning materials with you. Oops, there was one that I missed that went too fast. Okay. Do we get a detailed comparison document to update our training course? Yes, it's there. So in the download section of the ISKB website, you find a full traceability list of learning objectives and business outcomes with their traceability. So yes, it's there if you want, Freddy. Other questions? When new exams will be enforced, for how long old exam questions will be applicable? I think I tackled that to a certain extent in the existing questions remarks we had. So ISQB can only support 3.1 exams in English until 12 months after release. So what is it today? The 9th of May. So the 9th of May 24, there will not be a possibility anymore to take the old exam in English. For everything which is localized, it's 18 months. So then it will be the 9th of November 24, where you cannot do the 3.1 or 3.11 version of ISQB anymore. It will be the 4.0. So that's true for the new exams, for the exam questions, for the mock exams, and for training materials. Is the syllabus also available in a Word format for translation purposes? Using PDF is very difficult when translating. Mina, I understand your concern, and I support it. So we can only use PDFs because we have to guarantee, of course, the validity. We cannot put a Word document on our website. But what we can do, and we ensured that it was possible if we tried it ourselves, we tested ourselves, is that you open the PDF in Word itself and it translates, or it at least converts correctly. So just open the PDF in Word and that will work. We also checked in different languages, if you upload the PDF in translation tools like DeepL, like Google Translate, it also is also able to understand every line of it. So there's no strange PDF DRM stuff in there that prohibits you from using that kind of tool. So translation should not be the issue. And also, if you're looking for a Word version, most likely in your language, in non-English native language, you could contact your member board and maybe they have a Word version for you. Your member board should have that, so you can contact those. Can you add in time, not tomorrow, more mock exam materials? All the students say these are helping a lot and currently the number of these mock exams is low. I fully understand your concern. When we wrote this syllabus, one of the basic concepts was question-driven approach. That means that before we wrote the syllabus, based on the learning objectives we elicited, we decided to write basic exam questions for every learning objective to make sure that the learning objective is comprehensive, is understandable, is testable, is questionable. Based upon those, we composed the mock exam with additional questions also. And I thought that marketing idea was that by summer, there will be more official mock exams. We're working on, I think, 100 or 120 additional questions for these mock exams. So yes, they will be published. With a fair warning, because the syllabus has underwent such a drastic change, sorry, not a drastic idea. It has underwent a drastic change. That also means that every kind of mock exam question you might find on a website in a tool will be outdated. There's not a single line of the syllabus which has remained stable. So also every mock exam you find is now outdated officially. So if somebody wants to prepare in self-study to do the certification, the only usable artifact for the moment is the official ISQB mock exam. But pretty soon, more mock exams will appear. Is CTFL 4.0 enough to go for all CTFL Agile certifications? So is CTFL 18 not needed anymore? That's a great question. Political correct answer. CTFL itself cannot decide what the prerequisites for other syllabi are. We have one existing certified tester advanced level Agile certification, which is the Advanced Agile Technical Tester. and there CTFL is still the prerequisite. For the other one in development, which is called Atlas, Agile Test Leader at Scale, there still AT is there. What we are thinking about, and that is not undertaken yet, is that because a lot of content is there in the foundation, that we should rethink the prerequisites of the Agile tester. But for the moment, this is not yet the case. So AT is still there. There is still some added value in there that you can use, that you should use. So yes, you still need it. Another question regarding the Agile, sorry, oh, that's it. No. Do you plan to update AL? I guess you mean the advanced level? If yes, how soon? Well, if you mean the advanced level core with test manager, the test analyst, the technical test analyst, the test manager is undergoing changes. We have the same remark made for the test analyst, which is already undergoing some revamping. And the technical test analyst was updated a couple of years ago, so it's not that outdated. So there's no immediate plan except the changes which are already ongoing, and of course the changes are already linked to the new foundation. If you talk about the Agile tester, we are thinking about introducing a new module regarding Agile in the core. Once that will be released, then we are going to decommission the Agile tester, but that will take some time. We are only in the process of eliciting the learning objectives there. We still have to write the syllabus. We have to make sure it's validated, reviewed, so it will take some time. So for the moment, there's absolutely no plan to change the Agile tester, and we will decommission it once we have some new Agile syllabuses there in the core. Does this mean that the other syllabi will be updated in the future? But I think the basic concept of ISQB is that we try to update the syllabi whatever it's needed. When the market says needed, there's new technique, new tools, new insights, new academical backgrounds, empirical studies. So we keep on doing that. I think for this foundation, it took 5 years, which is quite lengthy, which also makes sense because if you ask training providers to do the effort of translating materials, creating materials, getting to accreditation certification, and then a couple of months later say, hey, we have a new version again, all that work is down the drain. That's not what you want to do. So I guess we can make the promise that whatever we will do, we'll update syllabi. That's true for foundation, that's true for everything which is in the core advanced, that's true for specialization where updates are coming. So of course we want to keep them as valid as possible. Did I understand correctly that the old exam will still remain until May 2024? In English, yes, basically and conceptually, yes. So depending on the exam provider you work with, whether it's a commercial company or a member board, that exam provider can choose to already make the shift to CTFL 4 and not offer 3.1 anymore. That is possible. They can decide to do both of them, to support 3.1 and 4.0, or to only support 3.1 and wait until May 2024. It depends on your provider of exams. In English, in non-English, or in every country, every language besides English, it's November 2024, which is the date of decommissioning. But it will depend. I guess a lot of organizations will do the shift earlier, so it's up to you to find the exam provider that gives the right or the wanted version of the exam that you're looking for. Can we get certification for free? That's a good question. Well, ISQB certification always comes with a cost, and it can be that somebody carries the cost for you, but an ISQB exam costs money. Depending on the country you are in the world and the exam provider you choose, it costs more or less. For ISQB, it remains equal because the fee that a training provider, an exam provider, a member board attributes to ISQB is stable. But there are so many differences, whether you do it on paper or in an e-form, an e-exam, or a proctor-based exam, or a computer-based exam. So many different exam types. But no, you cannot get a certification for free. I know there are academia institutes, there are universities that include ISQB in their portfolio, and maybe they deliver it for free, that they pay for the exams. There are training providers where you pay one fee to follow training, and in that fee the exam is included, but an ISQB certificate always comes with a certain fee. Gaurav, I already applied for the foundation level exam. The exam will be in June, so the question will belong to the old syllabus or new syllabus, so I need to prepare accordingly. I'm afraid I cannot answer that for you, Gaurav. I think you should contact either your exam provider or your training provider. Your exam provider if you do it in self-study, your training provider if you do it in a global class session. But I think indeed it's very clear that you need to align with those to make sure you study the right things. If your exam is 4.0 and you study 3.1, the chance is very high that you will fail the exam. Oppositely, if you study 3.1 and take a 4.0 exam, chance is similarly unlikely that you pass the exam. So make sure that you studied the right thing. Maybe it's already a good idea to ask your exam provider to take the 4.0 exam, since you already have to study. So you still have to study. Maybe just mix and go for the most recent exam, because it will provide most options for you. Lars, will training providers need re-accreditation? Well, a training provider normally does not have to be accredited itself. It's the materials that need to be accredited and the trainers that need to be accredited. Training materials, because it's a major change according to ISB rules. More than 20% of the learning objectives have changed. So yes, all materials, wherever you are in the world, need to be re-accredited by a member board. That also means that as a trainer, and that is something new, that's the first time we do that, because the change for the syllabus is so drastic. If you want to be a trainer for the new CTFL course, for CTFL 4, you either have to go for the exam, the new exam yourself, so you need to reapply for the exam and pass the exam, or you need to have the old foundation certificate, so anything prior to 4.0, but also the Agile tester, because we have so many Agile concepts there that we want to make sure that any kind of trainer also understands what agility is about and the basic concepts of things like iteration, planning, the backlog, retrospectives, definition of done, definition of ready, that all of these are there. And then I think this is the last question from Stace. Will there be a recording available of this? Yes, this is the live webinar, and we're approaching the end. Looking at my watch. So yes, this webinar is recorded. It will be posted on ISQB website and social media channels, so you can always review this webinar if needed. You also find my contact details and the contact details of the other product owners on the ISQB website. So if you have any questions regarding the syllabus, put them on the social media, contact us, and we'll try to respond to your questions as soon as possible. Okay, and I guess that was the last question. So I would like to thank you a lot for your attention, for being here. I wish you a great continuation of your day, and I wish you all the best and success with the new foundation level syllabus.
Yes, Michael, and from my side, I will thank you for the great presentation, also for a lot of questions. Some of them was really difficult. What I've learned, because we try to reply from the back end answered to all the people. So if there is still your question and it was not answered or not answered correctly, please speak up one more time, leave the comments. We'll try to come back to you. From my perspective, the biggest concern was what kind of exam I need to take. You already answered for this question, that please talk with your exam provider, ask about this, verify whether they will be new. You can choose if you still register for the old one. You can take advantage and to pass the new one. It depends on you. Again, Michael, to you and to Eric and the whole team, really, really great. Thank you, big thank you for the enormous work. How important this is for the testing community. We see you already mentioned about the digits, that without the advertisement we have so many downloads already on the website, so many people on today's online on the live, and I really, really hope that everyone enjoy of this work, and our certification will be much more closer to the project reality as it was intention of this change. So again, Michael, thank you. Have a great
You're welcome.
day, and all testing community. It was lovely to meet you, and let's be in touch.
Bye-bye.
Bye.